Welcome to the next edition of the DFR DFS Down Under show for preliminary finals week. It's the best week of the year. 2 cracking games of AFL footy coming up this week. And as always, DFR, your number one source of daily fantasy AFL, are back with the Down Under show for this week. I'm Smatho 10 and my co-host here, Big Hef, is back for another edition for the prelims. How are you, mate?
Very good, Smatho. I'm glad you referred to this week as preliminary final week because you've been calling it Smatho Australia week all week. So good to see you sticking with the official title. We'll get into that a bit later. But I've got a bit of enthusiasm for Port Tigers, and then I got to Geelong, Brisbane, and we'll leave that for later on in the show because, the less spent time on that, the better, I think.
Oh dear, oh well.
The struggles I've been having with this show the last couple of weeks. It's not getting any easier, but that's what finals are all about. Well, I'm told.
Well, that's what finals are all about, and daily fantasy is supposed to be a bit of a grind, a bit of a hard work.
No, it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be points galore. That's what we play for. We don't play for grinds. Oh... Well, way early here, Smatho. This could get dangerous, this show.
Yeah. Now, speaking of grinds, how'd you go on the old track last week? You gave us a couple of good tips. How did they go last week?
I don't think any of them get the turn. Vangelic, it was $12. It may as well have been $1,200 to 1. And Cherry Tortoni, I swear something went wrong with it, but yeah, it was there and just died as well. So we've got to bounce back on the track this week, that's for sure.
All right, we'll get stuck into your SportChamps tips very shortly because there's a big week of racing on this Saturday. But we're going to start the show here with, I did allude to at the end of the DFR Down show about the DraftKings World Cup. And the only reason why I'm really bringing this up is to congratulate the 10 team members that who have qualified for Team Australia. This will be getting underway next week, Hef, for grand final weekend of all weekends. Now, we've got a team of 10. I'm proud to announce the members on the DFR show tonight. It's not anywhere available at the moment. I'm sure that DraftKings Australia will drop the team tomorrow, along with the other teams around the world that we're taking on. So, Hef, here we go. Here are the 10 members.
I noticed you dropped a little "we" in there, Smatho. We're taking on.
Oh, look, let's have a look here. All right, so now remember this side did get beaten in the DK Ashes, so there's been a couple of changes.
You've come in and whacked them straight away.
Richie Ben over, a couple of changes to the side. They took on England and lost in comprehensive fashion. All right, so the captain JK123, the GOAT, is always going to be picking himself. That's fine. Returning to the side is Nova Clangers, the Meme King, J Barrett 16. I Love Lamp, or also known as Nuts in My Poo. He's back. Soodles, Procession, Rookie 82, and then what DraftKings Australia did last week was they put out a couple of qualifiers to get on Team Australia, and one for the AFL and one for the NFL. And congratulations to Arteta or Declan. He featured on one of the DFR podcasts earlier this year. The POM is now on Team Australia. And then, I managed to slip in with a bit of a qualifier in the NFL on Monday morning. So, congratulations to these members going to be representing Australia in the DraftKings World Cup. And just thought I might bring a prop in tonight. I've got the Team Australia scarf here ready to go. So that can be drawn around my neck to say that I am representing the good folk of Australia in daily fantasy sports, and I'm pretty proud to do that, mate. So
congratulations, Smatho. Now, I was going to have a prop too, but I couldn't find where my trumpet was. But very well deserved. Well, you won the qualifier to get in?
Yes, I did win the qualifier. Look, I technically came second. It was a qualifier for both England and Australia at the same time, the same contest. And I was on to the head honchos at DraftKings Australia to say, who's this guy in front? Is he a POM or is he an Aussie? And I didn't get a reply for a good couple of hours. So that made me sweat a little bit. But it was quite exciting to represent that. So make sure you stick to dailyfantasyrankings.com.au. We'll have the feature articles on the tournament itself and how you can get involved. This reminds
me, if you've seen the test, Smatho, about the cricket, this reminds me a bit of the Jay's the Steve Smith and you're the Marnus Labuschagne. I'm sure you're going to be sniffing around trying to get as much goodness out of the great man as possible. So let's hope you turn up and play like Labuschagne did over there in England.
Yeah, this is probably my first and only chance here. So just to get around the boys and
you're gonna wait for Jay to get in the head, and you get to go out and take centre stage and show us what you do.
Yeah, it might mean I have to make some readjustments in my sleep patterns because he's not usually available during the day. You usually find him late at night, so that's probably key to my success. But yeah, make sure see the website next week. The launch page will be out with the team previews. And as I said, how you get involved will be available on DFR on the site. So make sure you check that out. All right, let's move on to the next segment of the show, and that's always the 2 thumbs up from myself. And, mate, we only had a couple of nominations last week, let's be honest. We had Rohan, who won the Saturday night slate at the pub, and then on Draft Stars we had the Friday night thriller. The adjustment came through for a Sankei, the belt winner from 2019, the live final, as I bring his side up here for you, Hef. We were pretty strong on the double rucksack which came through for us, and Shane Edwards. We told you to back the truck up there, and that certainly worked. But Basher Hooley with the ton at 102 was the sharp play.
I'm pretty sure I said to play Judge and Short, but we might flip it around tonight. We'll play Basher Hooley tomorrow night, and it'll be Judge and Short's time. But, I think the key, though, is finding 72 from Camden. Obviously the key was the big ton from Tommy Lynch. That's not one that I could find at all. And then Seb Ross, who I was sort of wondering if he was going to stay in the league for much longer, Seb Ross, but there he is, part of the winning team. Very well done, Asanke.
Well done to you, mate. Only one more thumbs up left in the year. So, Sanke, well done. 2 thumbs up to you. If you want to get 2 thumbs from myself next week, make sure you get stuck into the Daily Fantasy contest for the AFL this week. And let's start here with SportChamps. Yeah, with SportChamps. Massive spring racing carnival as always. And this weekend was supposed to be almost the entree for the mains coming up next couple of weeks. This is Caulfield Cup and the Everest this week. SportChamps are always back with the best fantasy betting platform there is in the land. This week they've thrown up a $10,000 contest just for a $5 entry. So last week it was $7.5. This week they've gone bang with $10,000. There's also plenty of other prize points and tournaments on SportChamps. Make sure you get stuck into those, mate. Let's get a couple of winners for this week for the viewers. Who are you looking for in the Everest? Let's start the Everest. Who are you looking for?
Well, the viewers are going to be wondering, can you lay horses on SportChamps the way my tips have been going? But no, hold the faith. In the Everest, I actually like the Everest as a race. I'm going against Nature Strip. I just not like what I'm seeing from Nature Strip. I'm going with 2 horses who are good form. Classic Legend, doing excellent in both runs. It's also a grey, so it's easy to find in the run, which will help. And at longer odds, he's about $15 into $11 during the day today. Trekking, one of arguably the second stringer from the Godolphin stable, but I think he's their best chance in the race. And nice little inside draw for him. I think he could be the swooper late. So I'm pretty keen to back those 2 in the Everest. And that's all the tips I've got for you this week, Smatho, because Caulfield...
What do you mean?
They're tipping rain at Caulfield.
All right.
But if there's anyone tipping worse than me, it's the Bureau of Meteorology. And so they're tipping 15 to 25 mils. It could be none, it could be 50. Who knows? I think, especially with a race like the Caulfield Cup, there's horse like Anthony Van Dyke, the Pommy horse, or the Irish horse, or wherever he's from. He wants it dry. You've got Very Elegant. She wants it wet. The weather is going to have a very big impact on the Caulfield Cup. So I'm not prepared to stick my neck out on these imposters at Bomb until they start getting things right.
Very good. Well, make sure you jump onto sportschamps.com.au and make sure you have your profile on the DFR ranking site. Let's get all those ranking points as well. So next week I'll be looking forward to your Cox Plate Edition tips. into the grand final. This is going to be a huge show next week. So
massive
couple of weeks coming up. All right. Speaking of massive, let's get into Friday night footy, which is the prelim final between Port Adelaide, who are currently $1.85, taking on Richmond at $1.95 at the Adelaide Oval. It's a small spread of 1.5. The total's 114.5. As always, the fantasy sites have supported by a $75,000 single GPP contest on DraftStars. DraftKings have a $5,000 contest for this one. Both teams are actually unchanged from their wins. If you make sure you get to the data tools on the DFR site, and also viewers would know that we've been banging on about Richmond Rucks all season long, and that doesn't change for this particular match. And also, to some extent, Premier Backs, we did give that card last week, but Basher and Jaden Short put that to bed last week by scoring very well. So, but again, if you want to trust the data, then Port Premium Backs are in play against Richmond here. The Power are actually first in the league for contested possessions as well, and first in the league for tackles, which is fantasy gold as always. So, initially, I'm thinking that Port players are the target in this particular match, especially thinking they're going to win. But what are your thoughts on this particular matchup on Friday?
Look, it seems wrong to be against Port, given that they won through. They've had the week off in what's been a pretty condensed season, so I think the week off may even be a bit more important than it has been in past years. I did go out on a limb and say Richmond and Geelong were the only two teams who could win the flag a couple of weeks ago, so that would it would make it hard for Richmond to flag if they lost here. I think this is a real 50-50. I still don't think Richmond, I expected them to go up a level. I don't think they have, but I think they've still got another gear in them. So I think this is going to be a ripper of a match.
All right, let's break down the four positions of this particular match for fantasy, and then we always start with the ruck position. If they're all the same price here, Hef. Lysette, Nankervis, and less extent, Laddams are all around the 10K, high 10K, low 11K mark. $250 between them, actually. So, unless you think that Laddams gets up forward and kicks multiple goals against the Tigers, you would be pretty much targeting Lysette or Nankervis. So, what do you think out of these two?
Yeah, I think it's hard to play Laddams. I think you're right. Lysette's been burning us. Like it's been, I'm just looking through here, there's a good 10, 11 weeks where it hasn't gone above 73 fantasy points. So at 10,900, there's very limited upside there. And you can say, oh, well, he gets a really good matchup here against Nankervis. He's had a few other good matchups along the way there too, and he hasn't been able to capitalise. On the flip side, Lysette and Laddams are pretty hard to score against, which makes it a bit hard for Nankervis. Just managed to confuse myself beautifully there. I don't have any great lean between Nankervis and Lysette. I think what you gain in Lysette in coming up against Nankervis is almost offset by the fact that Nankervis gets the ruck on his own. So I don't think there is too much of an edge on who you pick here, and I'll probably just play a mix and try and find an edge at a different position.
Yeah, I would make the assumption that Nankervis will probably be the popular one out of those three. I reckon it's around the 60-65% ownership. So if you want to get down the Lysette lane for ownership, I don't mind that. But it's not spectacular position this, but you'll have to choose one of those, and hopefully they outscore one or the other. Now let's move on to defence, and this is probably the key position for this particular slate. And as I alluded to before, you want to be targeting the Richmond backs with Port Premium backs. So that brings in Houston and Burn Jones into play.
Port have premium backs, do they? So Port are a bit like Brisbane on this case. So they don't really have those. Well, they don't have the Basher Hoolies, the Lloyds, all these big name defenders. They don't really have them. Like Houston's got a bit of a name for himself this year. Burn Jones made the All-Oz team, but the squad anyway. He made the team actually, didn't he?
He did make the team, yes.
Come on. He didn't make my team, put it that way. But first of all, we talked about Short and Hooley last week. I said I wanted to be with Short. Didn't work out. off 100, like Hooley, is he going to be over-owned on that basis? Do we go with Short again? The old back the truck up theory, I almost lean that way. The same thing goes for Shane Edwards. We were really keen on Shane Edwards last week. I don't think he's a bad player by any stretch. Again, I think he's an obvious play, given the amount of time he's got in the middle of the ground. But I'm just a bit wary that the cat's out of the bag a bit now on Edwards, and he's going to be really well owned. Great play last week, and I think not such a great play this week. He's still playable, but I'm not as keen to play Edwards as I was last week.
If you are still keen, would you actually put him in your defence or actually chuck him in the midfield?
Well, you've almost got to look hard to put him in the midfield, given the other cheaper options in play. But that comes down to your build. It comes down to how much you want to play a couple of these cheaper portbacks who stand out to me. One of them is Ryan Burton. Now he's got if you're on the Draft Star site, it says he's got a form number there at 41, but he's got that 6 in amongst that where he's injured against North Melbourne. So in reality, he's basically getting 50 points plus a game, and at 9.5k, that's obviously really well priced. So I think he'd be popular, but I think he's a very good play, Burton. And another one I want to talk about is Tom Jonas, who I'm going to touch on this when we talk about the Richmond Forwards, but I don't think Jonas is going to step up and have a key defensive role. He likes to think he's that sort of peak Matthew Scarlett, Dustin Fletcher, just let me roam around and play off my reputation a bit. So at 7,800 Jonas, I can see him getting involved in maybe a few intercept marks and a few cheap mark kicks. So I think he's really well priced as well, Jonas. So they're my two favourite cheaper guys in the backs.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the mids. That Tommy Rockcliffe price is pretty high, but I think it's well deserved. He's showing that 100-point upside every match he's in. As I highlighted, Port love the contested game, a lot of contested possessions in the team. You think being a prelim, it's going to be a very, very hot footy. Would you make every effort to get him in your sides, or we'll try and have a bit of mix and match?
I'm not as desperate to have Rockcliffe as you are, Smatho. Because I think Boak and Wines are both also very good contested players. I think they're both viable options, and obviously you get them at a couple of grand cheaper. Now, when these two teams played earlier in the year, Richmond were missing a few players, so it's a little bit of fool's gold to look at. But Wines had his best game of the year with a 124. Boak had 100 for himself. Rocky had 80 odd, but he was just sort of only just going at that stage, Rockcliffe. The thing about Rockcliffe is you're probably just expecting to get at least 10 tackles, so his floor's probably really good. It's just a matter of whether you want to take the plunge of that 17,000 price tag or maybe try and save a bit of cash with those other two Port players.
All right, speaking of saving the cash, there's not many options below 10k. Your Caddies, your Marlon Pickett's, and then you got Dersma and Rosie at that 9k, so you probably have to squeeze one of these guys in. Any leans on this one?
Well, Dersma was going really well against Geelong until he tried to kill himself.
Squashed.
Yeah. So sub 10k, he can get 70. Dersma, so I think he's reasonable. Rosie's a guy I love. He can also get you 70. I don't know about Rosie though, so he seems to be pretty well owned all the time, because I think everyone loves him as a footballer, but he can throw you in a 30 or a 40, which could really hurt your team. So we talked about Shane Edwards. Like, it's a great spot to throw Shane Edwards into your midfield, especially if you want to play a couple of those cheaper guys in your defence, and then you can get up if you're really keen to play Rocky. That's going to open it up for you there as well. Another guy, when we're talking contested footy, Sam Powell-Pepper. I'm not a rap for him as a footballer, but contested footy is his go. 11,000, starting to get a little bit more than what I like to pay for him. I think he's all right. And then Richmond's, I can never go against Dusty Martin in finals. 14,000 seems pretty reasonable to me. And Dion Brescia has got down below 13,000, and he's the real bullying inside mid for Richmond. If it is a really contested game, he's going to be at the 4. So they're my two favourite Richmond mids.
Excellent. All right, let's look up the forwards. You probably need to save some cash here again. And most people will be looking at Stevie Motlop's name at 7K. Just quickly off the bat, yes or no?
Well, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Good.
Stevie Motlop ever strung two together? That's what I'll ask.
Look at that graph, up and down.
Yeah, not for a while.
Not for a while. But if you are desperate, he's not the worst. But speaking of worst, you said you were going to talk about Port defenders. Now, they're up against Richmond forwards such as Lynch and Rerold and Castagna and stuff like that. If you think Richmond's going to get a hold of this particular match, you need to have one of these guys. So is anyone that you're looking here to start with?
Anyone that's watched this show, Smatho, will know that I get really scared of jumping in on a guy who's just had a big game.
Yes.
Which really worries me here because I absolutely love Tom Lynch in this game.
Yeah.
You saw, if you watched Port Adelaide versus Geelong, Tom Hawkins kicked 5 points. He should have ripped that game off Port Adelaide if he could have kicked straight. They've got Captain Tom Jonas, known as their big defender. They've got Tom Cleary. I know why they didn't play Tom Cleary on Hawkins, and that's because he ripped him to shreds when they played him during the year. It just boggles the mind that they would put Trent McKenzie, known for a big left foot, and that's about it. And all of a sudden, he's standing Tom Hawkins, and everyone's saying, like, how can Port go if they can have Trent McKenzie playing on the big forward? Now, I mentioned this when I want to play Jonas because I just don't think. You called him a coward when we were talking earlier on before the show, Smatho. I don't know if I'm quite that solid on it, but why does the captain not go and stand next to the big key forward in finals footy? I've got no idea why that's not happening. If Trent McKenzie's going to play on Tom Lynch, you got 100 last week, you get 120 this week. Fair dinkum. Jonas is not going to go to him. I want to be playing Tom Lynch. I don't care if he got 100 last week and everyone wants to be on him. I want to be on him again.
Look, gamble responsibly, but empty the account on Tom Lynch.
No way. but he's just a superb play, Lynch. He looked unstoppable last week. They got rid of Dougal Howard, Port Adelaide. They probably wouldn't help him this week because he didn't help him at all last week, the Saints. But I just know that Jonas is not going to go on him. And if he does, Lynch will rip him anyway. So there's going to be a lot of space down there. And Big Lynch, he's my favourite forward, without a doubt.
Now, if you think this is going to be a coin flip, you'll probably need a Port forward. And you've got the likes here, a couple of forwards here. Just got the single stats, including Ebert at 11.7 and Charlie Dixon at 9.2. Any confidence in a couple of those guys instead? Or
I like Ebert. He's got the experience. He can help through the midfield. He's stringing a few games together. 11,000. You do know that you can get a big game out of Ebert, so I like that. When we've got these situations where everyone's pretty well priced, I do like leaning to guys you know can have a really big game if they turn up to play. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with Ebert.
Any other players before we move on to the next match?
No.
No? All right.
You've had a lot of these guys, but the finals for everyone's well priced. If I had to pick two, I'd go Lynch and Ebert.
Yep. Excellent. All right, let's move on to Saturday night. And this is the other prelim final between the Brisbane Lions, who are $1.74. They're taking on Geelong at $2.10. The spread's 3.5. The total's 120.5. Look, Hef's already excited for this match already. Look at him just stretching out, ready to go for this one. Draft Stars was a $75,000 contest. Look, we're recording on a Thursday here, so we don't have the prices or contests for DraftKings as of yet, but keep an eye on those. No team news as yet, but I don't think there'll be any changes from the side. There wasn't any injuries from Geelong last week, apart from Stanley. Stanley pulled up a little bit sore. Brisbane's good to go. I don't see any changes there either. If you make sure you get to the tools on the DFR site, and they'll show that the points against the two teams are towards the bottom of the table. So this is going to be a grind for fantasy sport calling. The only stat that sticks out here is, and we alluded this to last week, the Cats like to possess the ball in numbers, while the Lions do not. So if there's anything that, if you're just a neutral, you probably want to lean towards Cats fantasy players than anything else. So, Hef, what's your initial thoughts for this one? What's your excitement levels for this particular game on Saturday?
My initial, I know you've banned me from props on the show, Smatho.
Oh, come on.
This is my initial thoughts when I was looking at this game. We've got no changes. We've got the most two exposed teams. They don't give up fantasy points. I went reaching for the spew bracket because I'm looking through trying to think who we're going to play. Oh, it just made me sick going through this game. This is as hard as it gets. Hardest game of the season by far.
Not one, not two, but three spew up emojis. You put that in a text and just put Brisbane versus.
How can you possibly pick a bloke? It's going to be very rough. I'm actually going for Brisbane.
Me too. Yes, I do like Brisbane.
I did say I thought it was either Richmond or Geelong's year, but Brisbane were pretty good when they knocked off the Tigers. I think they're everyone's sort of. If you don't have a live horse in this final series, I think you'd be going to Brisbane, wouldn't you?
Yep. That is a very, very good take there from you. All right, let's get some more takes then. Let's start with the rucks. So we've got Big O and Stanley at the same price. Pick them. And then you've got Stephen Martin, who's, he's in the twilight of his career. He's not exactly fantasy relevant anymore, but he did grind out a 65 versus Richmond with 19 hitouts. So all of a sudden he can be a bit relevant again. So what do you think? Stanley was good last week. He made a mess of Grundy early before he took the gas off the
Grundy? What happened to Grundy?
Yeah, we might find something out later this year, but look, I'm thinking Stanley is safe, but geez, Big O scored some good fantasy points early against the Tigers as well, so I can see why the price is the same.
I lean the Big O. It's dangerous. It's a bit like this last game. That Stanley's a bit like Nick Curvis in that he gives up points out of the way, and this Brisbane pairing have been really stingy all year. But on the flip side, Stanley's the sole ruck, and McInerney's got to share with Martin. So there's going to be no changes. I don't expect them to drop Steph Martin, but he might have got 65 points, but he's looking really, really average, Steph Martin. I don't think this is the time that they would want to drop him, but he's not bringing much to the table.
No, he's not. All right. So you're thinking Stanley?
Gun him ahead, I'm going Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
But no, Stanley's obviously playable. I don't really want to play any of Steph Martin, but he got 65 and he played awful, so contrarian play.
Look, Big O's 7 tackles last week is probably the key, and if he can keep those numbers up, that might get him over the line here. He's a good tackler. There's 5-3, 5-3, 5-3 tackles. 4 marks last week, which has been a bit of a season high for him. Yeah, I like the Big O here.
He's on the up, the Big O. He's an ungainly looking fella, but he's improving all the time.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to defence, and let's just celebrate how you were all over this guy last week, Tom Stewart. But that price now is a pretty hard sell now. Pump him up so I can get to him.
No.
Yes, you've already alluded to that. You just can't go twice in a row on him. But
you know how much I hate going twice in a row, and especially when, I'm looking at 110 for Tom Stewart, but I'm thinking, I knew he was getting a big score last week, Stewart, so why am I going to get overexcited by that? Well, it's just expected. So now against Brisbane, it's still possible, but now he's up to 15-4. He's still there. He's just a fantasy gun, Tom Stewart, but it was a bit like Titchy Edwards. Last week it was just dynamite. This week he's still good, but cat's out of the bag again.
Yeah. All right. Well, what about other options for the Cats? We alluded to this last week. They might get into this chippy game, and lo and behold, in the first quarter, Jack Henry and Buse were junking it up already in the first quarter. Does Brisbane allow to do this type of game that we can trust these kind of cheaper guys for the Cats?
They generally don't. They generally don't give up points anywhere on the ground, Brisbane, but they're actually I think they're the stingiest team in the league in terms of giving up points to defenders, and if they're not, they're very close to it. So On the flip side, Geelong is exactly the same. They really cut down on uncontested ball. I would like to say that you just trade down here in the backs because there's not that cheap ball and you can spin up at other spots, but I don't want to be spinning up at other spots either. So you've always got to throw the data out the window here and just know that everyone's getting lower scores than usual, and there might just be the same sort of ratio for everyone. Blixarves is still playing that sort of second ruck role, so if you want to play it a bit safer, he's probably got a 60-point floor. My thoughts on cycling through those Geelong backs all around 8,000-9,000. I just can't. Well, Henderson's up to 11K. Like it's very hard to play Henderson.
But he's gone 72, 74, 93 in his last 5.
No, I know.
I mean, if you take that, if you hide up his name and think, oh yeah, that's pretty good going. But you can't trust it.
I didn't mind last time was Starcevic, and I probably see no reason to jump off him again. 7,100. He probably only needs a little bit above 40 to hit value. Let's run through his last 6 games. 46, 64, 0, 50, 41, 46.
Yep.
So as long as he doesn't get knocked out the first minute, he's generally hitting value, Starcevic. So there's a spot to save some salary.
There we go. Starcevic.
First year, he's improving all the time, Starcevic. He's quite a good footy player.
Yeah. No, I like that too. And he's popping on the cheat sheets here on DFR as well. If he gets to 42, he's already got 6x value, which is pretty good. All right, let's move on to the mids and looking through the CBAs, which you can check on the DFR data tools here, shows that Joel Selwood was just in pretty much in every CBA last week. His price hasn't gone up. Good fantasy scoring. I reckon he's pretty much one of the most popular guys on the slate, so we can pretty much lock him as one of the positions. But then you got the cream again, the Guff Pig, the Brownlow Mellors, Duncan Menegola, Danger, Lions, Zorko. Man, that's a lot there, and you can't have them, as always, so anyone that you want to be keen to have straight away.
It's interesting when we talk about Neil. He's been off the boil a bit, Lockie Neil. 2 of his last 3 have been subpar. I don't think they use Guthrie. I think that Guthrie as a tag of things pretty much evaporated, but maybe they bring Simpson in. Maybe they give him a role, or maybe they just go head-to-head like they always have, Geelong. How do you go past Danger? Sub 15K finals. They just put Danger wherever he has to go. Danger, they're going to put him in finals. So he was probably my favourite play. But all these guys, they're such good fantasy players. Brisbane are so consistent that they're big guys. They always get the ball, and it's very, very rare that one of the weaker guys through the midfield step up for them. Like Robinson's been average all year. The gloss has gone off Zach Bailey. Jared Berry's a very good football player, but it's hard to see him getting above that sort of 70 when they've got everyone in the side, because he just tends to get thrown out to a wing and half forward a bit too much. So I find it really hard to put too many players above the others.
Yeah. Look, just looking at the cheat sheet for this particular match, it shows a lot of high scoring for the Geelong mids in its last 5, whereas Brisbane are more even. So Lions, Zorko, McCluggage all scored 80 in the qualifier final, and they all scored 70 in the game before that. I mean, you do get the savings, which you probably need for this particular slate, but you want to be getting up to Geelong options.
Yeah, it's just so hard. They're all priced so well. It's very hard to find an edge.
Now, also we got Starcevic around in our teams. If Coleman gets selected, is he a chance at 7.5 to get to that 45-50 that you need?
I really don't think it's not really a game where one of these cheaper guys, especially against Geelong, it's hard to see them having a big impact, at least from a fantasy perspective. Like Coleman, I don't know, he just doesn't hit me as he's going to get any more than 40. it's like he's coming off a 12, Coleman.
Yeah.
I don't think he got injured, did he?
No, he got him late, real late in the fourth quarter.
Finals footy just doesn't lend itself to these outside, young, improving sort of players. It's just going to be a war zone, and the big guys step up to the mark. So somehow you got to work out that you just got to pick the right ones. And I'm not much help. That's why I brought this with me.
Another spew bucket. Yeah, all right, fair enough. Well, let's get in on the forwards. There are some cheap options here for the forwards, especially for the Brisbane side, where you've got McCarthy, Hipwood, Rayner, who's been pretty good lately. You probably need a couple of these guys to get those midfielders in. Dangerfield, Zorko are available. Hawkins coming off 103 at 13.6. If you have the salary, that could be a great GPP play. Oscar, the big O's in here as well, so you could do the double ruck stack. I
actually like the double ruck stack here.
Oh, we'll go on.
I didn't bring this up before, but we talk about how hard it is. These guys have good floors, McInerney and Stanley. So when I'm finding it hard to find blokes who've got, well, any edge at all in them in their price, it seems a very safe spot to go McInerney and Stanley, and then use a bit of risk. Go on Rayner's off his 25, but I thought Rayner was a reasonable play when he got that 25. There's no reason he's not a reasonable play again just because he got that score. He might get you the 80 at 9K that sets you apart from everyone else. Hipwood, no, I shouldn't say Hipwood. I don't like playing those big forwards against Geelong. I think they're really well structured down back Geelong. You talk about Hawkins. He did have 99 earlier in the year against Brisbane too. We usually think of... I actually think I avoided Hawkins in that game because I was so scared of Harris Andrews. But he's a hard man to stop at the moment, Hawkins, isn't he?
He's almost bulletproof. He's almost bulletproof.
This is as good as he's ever played, I reckon, Hawkins, which is unusual for a guy at his sort of age and his career. But yeah, cheap guys, I'm struggling here, Smatho.
Yeah, there's even Gary Rohan at 8.8. Would that be considered like he can pop? I'm not sure against this Brisbane defence though.
Yeah, it's very hard, but I think you got to. This is where you got to go for under-owned guys. I think you want to get your core that you like, and then you want to get your under-owned guys. You want to get, if one of your guys is going to go off, you don't want to be sharing them with everyone. So, if one guy's going to be way more owned than another, and I can't really split them, I definitely want to be going the under-owned guys, which is a bit of a theme in general, but I think, especially in finals footy, you want to look at upside, and even though they might bomb your team, that's the only way you're going to win is by landing on that surprise guy.
Yeah. A great example is if you've got 11,000 left in your forward position and you've got the likes of Simpson, Dalehouse, Gary Ablett and Myers left, I can bet you bottom dollar that no one will click Myers.
Yeah. As soon as you say that, I think, I'll roll the dice on Myers.
Yeah.
Because he can bob up, he can kick you 3 goals, or he can sneak down the opposite wing and get a couple of kicks out of defence. And yeah, you want the upside. Like you talk about Gary Ablett, is there any upside in Gary Ablett? I don't know. No, you don't. It's a hard one. This is the hardest of the year. Good luck to you.
Yes, good luck to all of our viewers who've been watching the DFR Down Under show for this week. Mate, we'll be back next week for the grand final edition. Somehow we made it to the grand final. Like it is the middle of October, and we're talking about the grand final at night. I'm not sure how that's going to be a handle, so we might have some tips about how we can handle a night grand final for DFS next week. Mate, thanks for your time for the show, mate.
No worries. I didn't bring much to the table in the second half there. But
no, you're spewing. So usually when your mate's spewing, you just have to pat them on the back and say you can get through this.
Tell you how it is here on the Down Under show.
All right. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, and good luck in the footy this week. Thanks, Hef.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.